grandmother disappeared in 1981. My grandfather's never stopped looking for her. There's a tone in Mill Creek that haunts the bones, and it wanders through the trees around this town. It's taken other people too. So my grandpa and I built a machine to follow it. Strange things happen here. Murders in light, brilliance in shadows. I'm Orin Des, and this is Wave Glass. Chapter 1. A Trip Home. In 2000, at the end of winter break, I packed up the few things I had brought with me to school. 2 coats, one heavy, one heavier, sandals and winter boots, a duffel bag of clothes, and my Fender jazz bass. Colorado State dorm rooms weren't big enough for the beds they crammed into them, so I'd done well to pack light. The colds were real cold, and the hots were real hot. And as long as I had my music, I didn't need much else. Back then, my bass was everything to me. Entertainment, study partner, therapist. Honestly, it still is. Andy, my roommate, played orchestral percussion for the symphony and had access to a collection of noisemakers from around the world. We were practicing for an open mic at Stir Crazy Cafe just 2 weeks away. And I couldn't wait to step on that stage and see how our music landed with an audience. As I rolled up my instrument cables, I chuckled, remembering a pearl of wisdom from my high school bandmate, Jimmy Cavalier. In relationships, he said, a little kink is fun, but not in your cables. He taught me to roll them up properly, saying, train them up in the way they should go, borrowing a phrase from his Christ-fearing mama with just a hint of mockery. And when I had finished my time at the junior college in Rosemere and left Mill Creek for the big university, I knew I might have to come back sooner than expected. Grandpa and I had work to do in our town. We had taken it upon ourselves to study Mill Creek's history, searching for clues about what might have happened to my Nana Sylvie. What we uncovered was a tangled history of disappearances and murders, peace-loving heroes, and profound thinkers. The town had always been home to odd sights and sounds, too. Uncanny vibrational hums, little pockets where everything just felt off. We kept running into them. We even set up experiments around town to record and study the irregularities we found. Grandpa was still deep in research in my absence, and I had a nagging sense not to stray too far. But this soon, I hadn't expected to be packing up my shit after just one term. I was just settling into my new life. I'd stepped out of Mill Creek's shadow, and I was sweet on a girl. Andy and I were making music that felt alive, and I even liked my classes, if you can believe that. But the call came, and I had to go. Monstrous regret poked at me as I packed. I stuffed my bag and headed to Owl's Grog Shop for a beer and a bite. I needed a minute to absorb the news of this loss, and I had to write some goodbye letters to my friends. The bar was nearly empty, enjoying a deep breath provided by the holiday break. I ordered a vodka tonic instead of a beer, hoping it would loosen my writing a bit, and opened my notebook. Dear Patty, I got a call from Florence back home. She told me my grandfather passed away and I need to take care of his estate. I guess I'll be back in a couple of weeks. I stopped writing, scratched it out, and just stared at the page. Nothing, I mean nothing in my head sounded right. Every explanation fell flat. I was sure my grandpa's body wouldn't be found, mostly because I was pretty sure my grandfather was not dead, but just gone, like Nana Sylvie. If Grandpa was gone, I was truly alone. And I knew damn well I wouldn't be back in a couple of weeks. Patty deserved to hear the truth from me, but the truth was way too big for words, and Patricia Diallo was a rare bird. I wasn't in the right place emotionally for that quiver in my liver crush love. I'd been through too much real life for that, I guess. Maybe I was just growing up. I respected her. I really admired her, and I wanted Grandpa to meet her. We met on the first day of term, and by November, we'd become close friends, the kind of relationship that felt special enough not to rush. She was gorgeous, but it honestly wasn't about that. I was genuinely intrigued by her interest and her poetic use of language. She knew a little bit about everything, and what she didn't know, she wanted to learn. She'd never read Douglas Adams, and I'd never read Sylvia Plath, so we traded books for the winter break. And just before the break, though, she kissed me. I played it cool, at least I thought I was playing it cool, but then her hand grabbed mine, subtly guiding it around her waist, and I swear my entire body turned to goose flesh. "I'll see you in a couple of weeks," she said with a sing-song rhythm, and she pecked my cheek before pulling away. I mumbled something about her having a good time in New York and made every effort to keep my voice steady. She walked away, and my hand fell to my side with regret. I didn't want to leave her. I really didn't want to leave any of it. But sometimes life doesn't ask you for permission. It just casts its magic spell and pulls you back home. Dear Patty, I have to leave for a while. My grandfather has disappeared, and the people who notified me say he's dead. They don't have proof, though, so maybe it's like what happened to my grandma. Most people who die from heart attacks or blood clots at 65 leave their bodies behind to tell their story, but he didn't. Mill Creek is a strange town with a history of odd shit, like I told you. So this is going to take some digging. I don't know what to make of it. A part of me believes he is okay, out there somewhere. But I could be wrong. I need to go home, find him, or find out what happened to him. Please don't be alarmed. I'll try my hardest to come back to you and to Andy, but something about this feels different, like a locked door creaking shut behind me. Maybe I'm just imagining that, but if I don't come back soon, I need to say now that I love you. I enjoyed the book. Plath's prose is elegant. I'll call soon. I hope your time off has been wonderful. Orin. I slipped the letter into Patty's paperback, leaving Esther Greenwood to carry the weight of my goodbye. After dropping Patty's book off at her dorm room, I walked back to my own and fell into bed. The next morning arrived with sharp cries and squawks from a crow just outside my window. I got up, left the note I'd written Andy, gathered my things, and headed north towards Cheyenne and the Interstate 80 junction. Along the way, I marveled at the armada of prairie dogs just off the highway, 10,000 strong, standing tall, practicing their sun salutations. The route from Colorado to the Oregon coast is a breathtaking trek, but this time it felt endless. I tend to obsess over the smallest things, even in the best of times, but with this giant bugbear climbing over me, I was overwhelmed. The rhythm of the road didn't calm me. It became a drumbeat for the endless loops in my head. Scratched vinyl, a needle skipping over the same groove. Number 9, number 9, number 9. I replayed scenario after scenario, each one trying to predict what I'd find when I got home. If Grandpa had discovered something, or triggered something, wouldn't he have called me right away? Well, shit, not if he disappeared. And no, we'd agreed not to talk about our discoveries over the phone. Looking back, his paranoia was more than justified. He was my guardian, sure, but since I was 10 years old, we'd been partners in this mad pursuit. We only had each other in this world, and he'd only wanted me to go away to school for the quote-unquote experience. Now I wished I hadn't left him alone. He was healthy, still super sharp, and when he visited for Thanksgiving, he'd been the same old grandpa, but he was getting along in years. Maybe he'd had a heart attack while he was out somewhere. Or maybe he'd figured out something more about the tone generators we built. There was definitely something going on there. Perhaps the right or wrong combination of tones had done something new, something unexpected, something he wasn't ready for. I just didn't know. One thing we did know for certain, Mill Creek was filled with sounds and vibrations that didn't belong. Subaural hums, low frequencies that didn't exist anywhere else. And they weren't harmless background noise. They interacted with each other in weird and unpredictable ways. There was an odd hum present at every disappearance site we found. It had to be connected. So late last summer, we built something to test that theory. A device designed to listen, manipulate, and maybe even interact with the vibrations. It was a cobbled-together contraption that we called the resonance engine. Just a box of old tackle, really. A mess of tone generators. These generators worked a bit like singing bowls, a woven together maze of thick alloy forks rigged around a central resonating chamber. I never thought it could do anything mystical, but strange things happened in Mill Creek, and the sound connection was undeniable, so maybe the resonance engine had done something unexpected. There was always a strange feeling when you flipped the power switch. And then what? A ripple? Like heat over asphalt, warping the space around him? A vacuum suddenly pulling him in? Was that what happened to Nana Sylvie? Number 9. Number 9. And then nothing. Or everything. The questions wouldn't stop. Had he vaporized, dissolved into mist, slipped into a shimmering fold in time? Number 9. Number 9. Or had the dissonance unraveled him at a molecular level? Did he fall into his own experiment like Dr. Albert Hofmann, the chemist who first synthesized LSD-25, then dosed himself and pedaled home as reality and time folded in on itself during his infamous bicycle day? Or was he still here, just vibrating at a frequency we couldn't hear? We had our theories about Mill Creek, but nothing set in concrete. Florence Tanner had just said, "Your grandpa's gone, honey. I'm so sorry. Nobody's seen him in well over a week." In that pause, I could practically hear her heart break. She was holding on by a thread, fighting to keep out the anguish closing in on her. Hazel Bell got Sheriff Hollis and Deputy Colton to go check his house after he didn't show up all week at the diner. They checked the house and all his stuff's there, but they think he's dead or gone, vanished like the others. I'm so sorry, Orin. I asked a few questions, just trying to get the picture, but the information was too shallow to dive deep. I was in shock. All I could get out was, "Thanks for letting me know, Florence. I guess I'll need to head home." And that was it. When I think back to that moment, I remember clinging desperately to hope. Hope that his research was intact, because he really was onto something. If it survived, it would all be in the shop. I knew I would need every bit of it to find him. My grandfather raised me, and much of our time was shaped by his obsessions. Playing music, reading and talking about novels, cooking, painting, photography, and above all, searching for answers to the mystery of Nana Sylvie. That last one wasn't just an obsession. It was a storm the size of Jupiter's great red spot, with its own relentless gravity. Facts and fears, fragments of town history swirled around us in a deafening, defiant hurricane. And who could blame him for continuing to live in its eye? I'd only known Patty for 1 semester, and we weren't even officially a thing yet, but if she vanished off the face of the earth, I'd lose my shit. And that kind of loss isn't something you just get over. No, Grandpa was well within his rights to continue pushing our research to the extremes we did. I crossed Wyoming and pulled off the interstate for gas and coffee well before descending into Salt Lake City. There was no way I was stopping in Salt Lake. I'd been there a couple of times before, and this is rich coming from someone who grew up in Mill Creek. It always felt really creepy to me. And that was years before I'd read... No, come to think of it, it was before that book even came out. John Krakauer's Under the Banner of Heaven. I'd ordered that book without much thought, assuming it was about climbing or borderless wandering, subjects I'd enjoyed in his writing about Alaska and mountaineering. Instead, I took a deep dive into the history of the church and its people, guilty of racism, sexism, polygamy, child abuse, and greed, all of it steeped in blood. On an earlier trip through Salt Lake City with my old band, my friend Sage and I walked across Temple Square, and we stopped to stretch our legs and get some food. I couldn't help but notice the demonic symbols woven into Mormon architecture. It made me think of Dylan. Well, it may be the devil, or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. It seemed to me that these folks served at least 2 masters, and neither of them was good. I felt lucky to be religiously unaffiliated. Worst of all, they didn't let their people drink coffee. No, I wasn't stopping there, not even to fill up on gas. The fastest way home would have been to hop on Highway 84 North, straight up from Salt Lake City to Portland. But I was young, curious, and I did need a place to sleep that night. I had just turned 21 the previous month, and this seemed like the perfect chance to experience the kind of entertainment legal adulthood offered. So, instead of taking Interstate 84, I stayed on 80. The border town of Wendover wasn't too far out of the way, and I figured I could cross the Salt Flats, grab a hotel for the night, and play some blackjack. From there, I'd head straight up to Twin Falls in the morning. Andy's friend Darren had shared some casino stories from a weekend in Vegas, and it sounded fun. Just sit at one of the $2 tables, he'd said, or park yourself in front of a nickel slot machine, and they'll keep bringing you free drinks. Not only that, but the drinks came on trays carried by women in stockings and velvety, low-cut dresses. That was part of the appeal, of course. I was a bloke after all. But I told myself I wasn't like those guys, the ones who leaned in too close. I wasn't about to turn into some womanizing bastard just because my ID said I was a man now. I reassured myself I was going just for the blackjack and the good night's sleep. The rest I'd try to take in stride. After all, I wasn't officially spoken for, but I had just left a letter for Patty that ended with "I love you." Dusk comes early in January, and as the blinding sun danced on the horizon, I entered the striking, desolate remnants of Lake Bonneville. While I drove, I imagined the lake's former inhabitants cartooned in the lonely, darkening cumulus formations. Giant ground sloth, poof. Columbian mammoth, poof. Mastodon. And it was full dark before I could find a saber-toothed cat leaping 10 or 12,000 years into the future to entertain me on my long drive. And there, 10 or 15 miles from the lights and glamour of a casino-filled border town, I felt the unmistakable ronk, donk, 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 as one of my tires exploded. I pulled onto the shoulder and came to a stop. There are a few places, within reach, that have less light pollution than eastern Nevada. When I stepped out, not a single pair of headlights or taillights shone ahead or behind me. Instead, my whole being, and the world I currently inhabited, was bathed in light from the heavens. The Seven Sisters and Orion shone brighter than I had ever seen them, and the Milky Way stretched across the sky like a cosmic brushstroke, painted from horizon to horizon. Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all easily visible with the naked eye, held their steady glow among the twinkling light from, well, everywhere, and from a long-ass time ago. The closest starlight I could see was from Alpha Centauri, and just over 4 light-years away. Beyond the Milky Way, past my blown tire and past Mill Creek, lay the Andromeda Galaxy, 2.5 million light-years away. Vast. Oh my god, it was so fucking big, it hurt my head to think about it. 100 million stars in the average galaxy, 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. If this were a movie, the cinematographer would have sent the camera spinning around me to heighten the disorienting wonder. And I couldn't decide if John Williams or Danny Elfman would be a more apt composer for the soundtrack. For the first time, I saw how utterly populated with light the universe was. I soaked in that cosmic, peaceful, easy feeling, then drove to a hotel with food and table games where I could put a few light beers away. Musica Universalis. Stopping to change a tire was a small price to pay for a moment of incalculable worth. A gift from the universe to little old insignificant me. I thought, I need to write a song about this. And later, I did.
Thanks for listening to Waveglass. Written and read for you by Aaron Lewis Gibson. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved. No part of this podcast may be copied, shared, or rebroadcast without permission, except for brief excerpts used in reviews or commentary. If you're enjoying the ride, tell a friend, leave a review, or just hit subscribe. See you next time.